Hello, instructors, and welcome to the November 2013 WebEx for Sector 3 Division 5 instructors. This month, we are going to be covering the mid-year reviews. We're going to be looking at what we've accomplished over the past 6 months, and then we're going to be talking about some standard operating procedures and also best practices. Let's talk about the mid-year review. For fiscal year 2014, that's the year that we're in now. The fiscal year runs from July 1st of 2013 to June 30th of 2014. For the month of July, we introduced the new instructor handbook. It was available and in effect. But we also started posting our WebExes, and they were available on our YouTube station and also on the instructor library folder that you can access through SharePoint. In August, if you remember, we pulled all of our pay and volunteer instructors in and conducted our yearly in-service meetings. At that point, we also introduced standard operating procedures for processes and how we handle different types of paperwork and different types of day-to-day processes that happen with instructors and classes. In September, the Red Cross nationally released new anaphylaxis and epinephrine auto-injector courses online. With that, the old information did change. If you have students that are interested in your community classes or in your full-service classes that ask you questions about that, they can go online to redcross.org and access information about these courses. Last month, in the month of October, we launched digital certification. And we're going to talk later on in this presentation about some best practices revolving around digital certification. In November this month, we're making the announcement that starting in January, we're moving our instructor WebExes to once a quarter. And then in December, we're going to start projecting. We're going to be looking at mid-year evaluations and review of goal progress. So the training specialists are going to be looking at paid and volunteer instructors. We're going to be continuing to do our audits and making sure that we're on track for the next 6 months. So starting in January of 2014, our busy season for preparedness, health, and safety starts. So we want to make sure that we are ramped up and ready to go when we come back from holiday break. So let's talk now about quality and we're going to talk about standard operating procedures, and then we're going to talk about how those intertwine with best practices. What is quality? The definition here says the standard of something is measured against other things of a similar kind, a degree of excellence of something. So quality is making sure that you are doing the right thing at the right time, making sure that you're providing good customer service, and making sure that you are also sticking to the standards that have been set for you. Like I mentioned, in August of this past year, August 2013, we did release some processes to further enhance our standard operating procedures and how we are going to handle day-to-day procedures in the classroom and also on the back end. A standard operating procedure, or an SOP, as it will be referred to later on in this presentation, is a detailed written instruction to achieve uniformity of the performance of a specific function. The American Red Cross has a commitment to quality goods and services, and I know if you've been an instructor for any amount of time, you're familiar with the fact that we are very committed to having quality goods and services and quality classroom experiences for our students. So that includes the PHSS courses. We want them to be great classes and a great experience. Guidelines for instructors on standards and procedures can be found in the instructor agreement and code of conduct, which all instructors sign either when they first become instructors or if they're coming in from another agency like American Heart Association. We're going to go ahead and we'll have them sign an instructor agreement and code of conduct so that they know what's expected of them. The instructor handbook, which as I mentioned was released in July of this year, has the standards and expectations for instructors. You're all familiar with your instructor's manual and how to use your instructor's manual. That's another place where we're going to be able to evaluate quality based on if you're following the steps in the instructor's manual. And then also in the instructor's library on SharePoint, there's lots of documents that are posted there as far as if an instructor wanted to go and look up what a particular operating procedure was or what a policy was regarding, for example, walk-in students or handling blended learning classes, or even how to reconcile time cards if you're a paid instructor. That information is also posted on there. You can go in and access that. In order to achieve quality, we must all follow the standards. All right, let's do a quick knowledge check. This is a recorded session, which means if you are listening to it, that you need to send the answer to this knowledge check to your training specialist so that you can get credit for it. So the American Red Cross also has protocols to verify and guarantee that our standards are being met. Which of these are not a standard practice? Training of instructors, coaching instructors, sending in a student dressed as a gorilla to audit a class, quality assurance checks, or reviewing student surveys. And if you answered number 3, sending in a student dressed as a gorilla to audit a class, congratulations, because that is not a standard practice. In fact, that's ridiculous. All right, let's talk about best practices. A best practice is a method or technique that has consistently shown results superior to those achieved with other means, and that it's used as a benchmark. In addition, a best practice can evolve to become better as improvements are discovered. Regarding standard operating procedures or SOPs and best practices, let's talk about how they can work together. A standard operating procedure, as we discussed, will tell you exactly what is the end result that is expected. But a best practice will help you achieve the expected end result in a more efficient way. A standard operating procedure will give you the step-by-step instructions to follow in order to comply with the policies of the company and meet expectations. But a best practice may suggest simple changes in your routine that will still facilitate compliance on those policies. So the second knowledge check, true or false? Best practices and standard operating procedures are considered to be the same thing. The answer is false. Let's think for a moment how to create a best practice. First, you're going to take the standard operating procedure and understand what is required. Then, you're going to verify how to make it more easy and more productive. So in the end, you implement your best practice and adjust it as necessary. A great example of how you could create a best practice would be to consider the paperwork that's in your instructor box. A lot of instructors can face the issue of having speakers of other languages in their classrooms. The American Red Cross does have Spanish ready reference cards that can be printed off from Instructor's Corner. So the standard is that all students have ready reference cards when they're taking our classes. But if you have a student who's primarily a Spanish-speaking person in your class, you may consider having extra copies of the Spanish ready reference cards that they can use. That's an example of how you can more easily help a student to achieve a goal that you're still within the standards of what's required of you. How about a best practice before a class starts? On page 10 of your instructor's manual, it simply says, instructors should follow the instructor's manual to use appropriate video and audio-visual support. As you know, as instructors, there's a lot more that goes into setting up a class than just making sure that the audio-visual support works, so that's a very important component. So best practice for you may be to arrive at the classroom early enough to set up and to test everything, and also to make sure that you're not rushed or frustrated in case something does happen to go wrong with the audio-visual equipment. And then also greet and make small talk with your participants before you formally start the class. It helps to break the ice, and it may help you to also resolve some registration issues that you're going to face once the class starts and you're having to verify names and spellings and email addresses. What about a best practice during a class? Page 9 of your instructor's manual says, identify potential instructor candidates and refer them to the supervisor. A best practice could be that you utilize the new volunteer instructor candidate flyer at the end of every class. I think right now in most territories in our sector, that flyer is being photocopied on the back of the digital certification booklet. You should automatically be getting that out anyway. But maybe talking about it just for a minute at the end of your class could be helpful. And then also writing down on the after action report that any information about a participant that's interested in becoming an instructor, including the phone number and email address. I know personally that this just happened in Georgia with one of our instructors, where I looked at the after action report and saw that a student was interested in becoming an instructor, and I followed up, and the instructor or the student signed up to take an instructor class. So that's a great way that you as instructors who are on the field and know what will make a good quality instructor, if you see that quality in students that are taking your classes, feel free to let them know that we do have volunteer instructor opportunities, and it might be something that interests them. All right, let's talk about best practices after a class. Page 10 of the instructor's manual says, instructors should always let participants know that all Red Cross course materials are available for purchase through Stay-Well, as well as the online Red Cross store at www.redcrossstore.org. A best practice for that may be to have a list of closing details to have to cover before the dismissal of every class, and attach it in your instructor's manual, similar to a checklist. The list should include information on refreshers, digital apps, merchandise, and digital certification. I know in a lot of areas that we do have information cards that we give out to our students that have a lot of this information, so maybe pulling out that information card and going over it with the students could also be helpful as you go through that checklist of all of the specifics to cover. Also, in the next 6 months, or the remaining of this fiscal year, the Red Cross is planning to release more smartphone apps, specifically related to Learn to Swim and babysitting, along with some other apps that are in the process that the National Red Cross has been talking about. So making sure that you as an instructor are aware of what's coming out, paying attention to the email correspondence that comes out from the training specialist for the weekly emails will help you stay more up to date with all of the different information that's available for students so that they can have first aid information right there in their pocket. All right, digital certifications and best practices surrounding digital cert. This is now, November is going to be the second month that we've implemented digital certifications. We are still working out some of the kinks as far as what it looks like day to day to talk to people about digital certs, how the processes work. But for the most part, things are pretty established with them. So making sure that you're familiar with the processes and its benefits so that you can be knowledgeable when you're talking to students. Read carefully the frequently asked questions handout that was distributed before the implementation of digital cert. It's also going to be posted in the instructor library on the digital cert folder. So if you want to go in and look at it and just perhaps if you have a specific question, it might be answered in the FAQ document that's posted there. Verify all names and emails of participants before the start of your class. So like I had mentioned before, as you're setting up the classroom and students come in, maybe making sure that their information is correct on your course roster so that when it comes, having that data correct from the beginning is going to help if there's an issue later on with that student getting their certification. You can ask for all participants to write any missing information using capital letters only. That'll help with the data integrity to make sure that their handwriting is easy to read. And then making sure that you call the 1-800-WEB class number immediately after your class. That way you won't miss the 2-hour deadline. As a reminder, if you are teaching a class during a time whenever the training, not just for community classes, I'm sorry, if you're teaching a community class after the time that the training support center closes, then you'll need to call in the next business day with that information. This best practice idea is just a suggestion. If you are not able to print, I know sometimes instructors maybe permanently or temporarily have issues with printing. One suggestion was to consider downloading a free PDF to Word converter from your computer. You can simply go online to a search engine and type in PDF to Word converter, and it pulls up lots of options of free converters that you can download to your computer. And then when you get the course, if you're going to either print it off using Instructor's Desk or if it's emailed to you, you can always convert it to an editable Word document so that you can put in the information. You can see here an example where students' grades are added in to the course record, the course roster, and then also the information about calling it into the Training Support Center with the rep first name and last initial, and then also the case number. So all the important information is there, and then you can go ahead and submit this with whatever method your territory has designated to submit course paperwork. The only downfall of this is you need to make sure that the student's information is correct. So if you're going to do this, you may want to keep in mind that you'll have to pull this up and maybe have students look at your computer and just confirm that their information is correct. The good part is that if it's not correct, you can just go ahead and edit it right then, and you'll have all the correct information right there on your computer. All right, let's talk about best practices for challenging students. Let's say a student is loud or disruptive, and this does happen from time to time in our classes. One thing that you can do is utilize proximity and lower your voice. So you can move somewhat closer to that student and talk in a lower voice. Perhaps they would reflect that back to you, and if they were excited, that's when they're being loud or disruptive, it may calm them down. If that doesn't work, then possibly waiting till a break or calling a break and speaking personally to the student and explaining to them the need for them to either lower their voice or to limit their disruption so that you can get through the course material and it not have a negative effect on the other students in the class. Let's say that a blended learning student did not complete the online part of their course, and they come in and they tell you either, oh, I didn't know we had an online part, or I didn't have time to complete it, or I had computer issues. You do have the option of letting them call the Training Support Center right then and rescheduling the class, or it's a good practice to keep extra copies of the written test with your blended learning instructor material or in your instructor box, and having that available so the student has the option of taking the written test at the end of the blended learning session. Then you can issue that to them, and if they pass it, then you're able to go ahead and indicate that they successfully completed the course. And finally, real quick, just some additional best practices or even reminders. In the September WebEx, when we talked about technology, we did discuss the Division 5 instructor page as a great resource for all instructors. All paid instructors should have access to it. You should just be able to click on the link that we've sent out to you several times now, but if you want it again, you can always email your training specialist to get it. If you're a volunteer instructor, you may need to contact the training specialist and find out what you need to do to get access to it. But it has all kinds of links for all of the websites right there. It's kind of like a one-stop shop. And there's also information about our WebExes and trainings there. So you can get the link to the YouTube trainings from that website. Next point, we cannot provide for instructors to have ARC branded shirts, but we do provide name tags. So if you do not have a name tag, or if you're new, make sure that you check with the training specialist to find out if a name tag has been ordered for you. However, if you would like to purchase some shirts out of pocket, you can set up an account on arcmerchandise.com. I think when you go on there, there's some specific steps of that you'll need to work through, but it is an option. This might be a great example where if you are teaching frequently and you'd like to invest in some shirts that you can wear just for teaching, they have some very nice polo shirts on there for both men and women, and I think there's also some other branded clothing like coats or hats that you may be interested in purchasing as well. And then finally, just as a reminder, concur reports for paid instructors. A standard best practice that we suggest is that you submit 1 to 2 reports a month, and it helps if you submit them at the same time that you enter the time on your time card. If you have multiple expenses to reconcile, you can list them all on the same report. So a lot of times instructors will ask, can I put my T-card expense and my personal vehicle expense or my mileage on the same report, because one is paid back to the credit card and one is paid back to the instructor. And the answer is yes. You can put both of them on the same report, and the system will determine based on the code that you use where the money should be put. That brings us to the end of this recorded session, and I thank you for taking the time to listen today. As a reminder, you need to in order to get credit for attending this month's WebEx session, you do need to take the 2 answers to the knowledge check questions and send them in an email to your training specialist so that they can block your attendance for this month. Thank you for listening and attending, and have a great day.